Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to be here with you this morning. This is Apostle Crystal Lee, and we are here at 111 days of kinetic prayer. What day are we in? I know I have it here. I do this every morning, don't I? I believe we are on day 11 of the kinetic days of prayer, and we are on day 5 of the fast. If I'm not mistaken, that's where we are, and I'm excited. It's been an amazing time. If you are um, united with us in this time of fasting, then you are experiencing some absolutely amazing things. I am certain that the Father is revealing some things to you in this season, that things are being uncovered. I find personally that each time I'm on the fast, that the Father begins to reveal some things around that third day. Things start being uncovered, and it's just always an exciting time because in the fasted place he often allows us to identify where our next place is, where our next space is. So that's the beauty of the fast, because it allows you to see what you couldn't see. It makes you more sensitive to the things that you need to be looking at and need to be identifying and understanding. So again, I'm excited. I pray that you are enduring in this time, because listen, the time that we are in is so crucial. And if we have never done anything like this before, then now is the time. You have to force yourself. You have to put yourself in a position. Paul talks about throughout his writings, he talks about how he deals with his flesh. You know, what he does with that flesh is what positions him to be used of the Father in the time that he's being used. And so this place that the Father is calling us into, this place of fasting, this place of sanctification, this place of sacrifice, is what absolutely positions us to allow the Father to use us, that we are ready. We are made ready vessels when we are allowing ourselves to undergo this kind of pressure, this kind of fire. And I promise you, it's going to prepare you for all that's happening in this end time. If you do not prepare yourself now, then you will not be prepared then. You know, this is again one of the things that the Father used in order to try to take Egypt out of Israel. He tried to use with them this place where he would take them through a little spell, just a little spot where they were not eating or drinking. And they couldn't get no identification on that. They had a real issue with that place. And because they had a real issue with that place, then they were still giving themselves to their appetites, the appetites of their belly. And this is a thing that the enemy will use. He will use your belly to get you off course. He will use your belly to keep you out of the place of promise. If you can grab hold of this thing that we're talking about in this season, I don't care if you've missed the whole thing already, you need to jump on this. You need to jump on this. There are days that are ahead of us that we need to be prepared for, and the Father desires to prepare us. I'm going to put this up on the screen really quickly. I know I don't have any music up this morning, but I want to put it up anyway, just so we are clear that under the title of 17 USC, Section 107, we have some allowances for fair use. So I don't know what all the Father wants to do, but I want to put that up before we get going here. Good morning again to all those that are here. I'm excited to be here with you. And I'm praying again that you are with us during this time and you've unified during this time of fasting. I'm going to tell you something. There will be many. And there are people that have been with me for some time, and they understand that during these kinds of times, this is when people abandon ship. This is when people leave the home front. This is when they get out of line. You know why? Because the flesh does not want to be challenged on any level. The flesh doesn't want to be challenged to grow, and it does not want to be told no. The flesh wants whatever you've been training your flesh to do, that's what it wants to do. And the moment that parameters go into place, the moment that boundaries are made, the flesh wants to do something different. But if you bring that flesh up under subjection, I promise you, you will see the hand of Yah as you've never seen it before. You will hear his voice as you've never heard it before. You will know what you need to know like you've never known it before, and you will see what you've never seen. We've been talking about allowing the divine imagination to be activated when you hear the Father speak. Well, first you have to hear him speak, and when he speaks, then you have to begin to see the images so you'll know how you need to walk a thing out. And I shared this with you the other day, that you need to have you a paper or and a pad and some pencils or a pen or something, a pen preferably, because pencil over time will probably diminish, but a pen. And you need to begin to write down as he's speaking to you what you're hearing him say, what that looks like. What does that look like for you? Because that's that divine imagination at work, identifying what the Father is saying so that you can carry it out. Listen, we had some good times yesterday. We talked about a great many things. And one of the things that we began to end off with, we began to talk about this conversation about Mount Hermon. And as we begin to talk about Mount Hermon, we begin to detail the position that the UN is on that mount. It's on that mount. This is the place where three very important things happen. Three very historical things happen on that mount. And I want to reiterate those um, three very crucial things that happened on that mount this morning. The first thing that happened on that mount was that those watchers, that was their diabolic meeting place. It's not a divine meeting place. That was their meeting place for them to come into covenant agreement and make imprecations to do this thing concerning the people of the earth. They wanted to sleep with the women. And why did they want to sleep with the women? Because they wanted a seed. Darkness wants a seed. And so this was from the beginning what the Father told to uh, as he was having the conversation between the woman and the wicked one, who now had become the serpent, right? That was now cast to the ground, right? Now he was calling this thing the serpent. And he said two things. He said, your seed will contend with her seed. He said, and your seed will bruise the heel of her seed, but her seed will crush the head of your seed. And I explained to you many times ago that this bruising the heel deals with the balancing. You know, when something happens to your feet, you're not balanced properly. You know, your walk can be different. Your gait changes because something has happened to your feet. And I was expressing yesterday how there was an attack made. You know, I had fallen and I had hurt or injured my foot. It was very temporary, understand, but I did injure my foot. And in the injury of that foot, it changed my gait. It changed how I was walking during that time because I was trying to keep the pressure off of my foot so that I would not feel the pain. But it absolutely changed how I was walking. I'm walking right now, but in that moment, my walk was off. I was limping at first, and then I was walking on the inside of my foot. And then as I began to put my foot down on the floor, those different things begin to shift, and I begin to bring those things back into order with my words, right? Because we create with our words. Then I was walking slower, right? My walk was a lot slower because something had happened to my foot, right? And so this is the time that the sons are going to come down on the head of that serpent. We're going to begin to crush the head of the serpent. And it doesn't mean that we haven't done some crushing in seasons before now, but there has been some impairment on the sons in these seasons. And this is why we had to be chambered. And this is why we had to be hidden and all of these different things. And now the Father's been talking to us about being restored because we had to go back to some places and identify what had hindered us or what had put us in some places, right? Because some of us, and when I say some of us, I'm just dealing with sons. Sons have been put in some places. Sons have been through some things. And what the industrial complex, the religious industrial complex, or the church industrial complex has taught people to do is to just walk past their pain. Walk past it. Don't acknowledge the pain. No, you're going to need to stop and take a moment and acknowledge what's going on with you so that you can speak to it. If you just go past it, then it might remain. But if you stop and acknowledge that it's there, then you can speak to it, right? You can communicate what needs to be communicated in that moment to deal with the issue so that it does not set up chronic inflammation. Yes, inflammation is a part of the process of healing. So when you injure yourself, like when I injured my foot, inflammation went to that area. That's what the swelling was about. The swelling was a result that something had rushed to the area to begin the process of healing. And so that looked like swelling. right? So what we don't want though is for there to be chronic inflammation. That means something else has gone wrong with my foot. There may be some blockages or something there. This is what would cause chronic inflammation. That didn't happen with me. My foot is whole right now. But if there was chronic inflammation, that would mean that there was some kind of blockages that were preventing the flow of blood properly to the foot. Circulation would not be proper, and therefore there would become chronic inflammation. That means that whatever had set up there would become worse, and it would remain instead of being dealt with. You understand what I'm saying? So this is what the Father is saying to us in this hour. He's saying, I'm bringing my sons back into a place of healing and proper alignment through them identifying the things that have blocked them, the things that have attempted to stop them. So we've gone through some things, and in going through some of those things, we've seen some things several times over. We've been through some relationships, maybe not the same person, but the same spirit. We've been through these relationships several times over. And if you're not careful, you might say, oh no, this is completely different. And you might ignore the fact that this resembles the last situation. Yes, there might be some nuances that might be different in this situation, but because your eyes are open, you can see that this is the same thing, different person. So the reason why there are different nuances is because they're different people, but it's the same spirit. You understand what I'm saying? And so this is what we have to identify in this season, that we're going through patterns, that we're going through cycles. And there's nothing wrong with patterns or cycles as long as they're not diabolic, as long as they are not those things that are preventing us from getting to the destined place, from getting to the place of promise. We've got to identify these things in this season. And so many of us are walking through this process now, even in this 111 days. I'm going to say this to you. What happens during a fast is that things are brought up, right? Well, how do they come up? First of all, your body wants what it wants. And in that process, as your body is wanting what it wants, you begin to go through healing crisis, right? And what does a healing crisis look like? It looks like pain in areas, whether that is physical or emotional, right? Or mental, whatever it is. There are different areas that come up while you're processing through this fasted place, because now they are exposed. You understand what I'm saying? While you were not fasting, these things could hide. But now that you are fasting, I'm giving you a golden nugget here for fasting and the purpose of it and the reason why you need to do it if you're not doing it. And it doesn't matter what you have going on. You understand what I'm saying? Because you have to come to a place of discipline that allows you to be in the presence of your God, where nobody, nothing can keep you from that place. It can't be a thing of, oh, the holiday is getting ready to come up, or oh, this thing, or oh, my birthday is getting ready to come up, or oh, this is, it can't, that none of that can matter right now, because where we're going and where we're headed, you're going to need to be able to come into this place of discipline. The Bible talks about us judging ourselves. Fasting is a place of judgment. It's the same thing that Paul was talking about when he says, I bring my body under daily. In other words, I'm taking the time to particularly and intentionally bring my body to a space where it understands that it doesn't run me, that I run it. So your body's going to speak to you during the fast. It's going to remind you of the vegan yogurt that you have in the refrigerator. It's going to remind you of the sweet potatoes that you have on the counter. It's going to remind you in the time when you're not eating of all these little things. I haven't had that issue. Haven't had that issue during this fast, but I'm telling you, these are things that if you haven't fasted before, then those are the things that the adversary can bring up. He wants to distract you with things that don't matter, because what matters right now is your focus. Okay. So there were many things that the Father had brought up with me this morning, and I want to kind of just go into this. So we kind of left up on, and it's so funny because as I'm speaking to you, I'm feeling some kind of pulling in the lower part of my back as if my stomach wants to growl, but it's not growling. It's just going to a little, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a little thing in my back. So I don't know if there's somebody on the line that's dealing with a back issue or a back situation, but if that is you, if you have tapped into this live this morning and you're dealing with some kind of back situation, then we're declaring this morning the very healing power of Yah flow through your body right now, that it will flow to that spot where you are having an issue. And if that is you in the room, Whether we are live or by replay, I want you to let me know that that's you. And I want you to also let me know when the pain has left your body, because I feel it lifting from mine, whatever that was. It wasn't a sharp pain for me, but it was an indication. It was an indicator that somebody was having an issue there, because I don't feel it anymore. So that is leaving your body right now by the very power of the Most High God. It's leaving your body. So let's go here. Let's go here. But that indication was just my body, as I was saying it don't run me, letting me know, no, you haven't eaten in a great many hours. And also, also I need you to eat something, but that won't be happening until 11 o'clock. So again, our fasting hours are all day, every day, except for the window of 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. You got plenty of time. That's a 4-hour window to get something in your belly. You got plenty of time to eat like you should and drink like you should in that window, because outside of that window, you shouldn't be doing anything that is, obnoxious. You need water priority with lemon in it, or teas. I don't have a problem with you guys drinking a smoothie of some kind, but it's not something with sugar in it. It can't be something with sugar in it. And I'm going to tell you, dates are your best friend. If you get pitted dates, you have to take the pit out of it before you blend it, because then that's going to be a problem for you. You're going to have pitted date in your drink. But if you buy them unpitted, then you can just throw them in there. I made some dressing the other day. It was absolutely amazing. I make the best dressing. I promise you I do. But it was a creamy cucumber, and I used my vegan mayo, and I used my cucumber. It was a very large cucumber. I cut it in half. I'm not going to tell you the whole process, but dates was what I put in there. 2 pitted dates, 2 unpitted dates in there for the flavor that I wanted besides the seasoning that I put in. And so it was fabulous. So you can use that. You can use that for your teas. You can use that for your smoothies and all of those different kind of things. But you want to avoid false sugars. Okay? Eat naturally as you can. Nothing wrong with you cooking it, but don't kill it. Right? A sweet potato is different. You got to put that in the oven, and that's how you get the nutrients, is by cooking it. But there are other things. I need you to eat a lot of fruit. I need you to be well hydrated. All of those things are necessary for this hour. So let's go on into this. We've spent about 20 minutes getting that out of the way. Lots of things were on my mind this morning. And as I said, we were leading ourselves into this space where we want to talk about the mark of the beast. And why we need to talk about marks is because people need to understand, with all of the verdicts of darkness that are coming down the pipeline, you need to understand your position, how you should be holding the position. Now, I want to say this because the Father was reminding me of this morning. If there be any chance, I'm going to pull it up right now. If there be any chance that darkness desires to take a different approach, as far as, because we know that this this adversary desires to make covenant. Right, we hear that in Daniel, I believe it's chapter 9, where it talks about making a covenant with the many for 1 week. This word covenant is not dealing with an agreement that's on both parts. It's really dealing with, there's an enforcement of something. So this is an enforcement. The word there is gabor. It's the same thing, the same concept as the giants, right? There's an enforcement by force. And so this covenant that's going to be made with the many for that 1 week is going to be a time of forcing something that they want to enforce on a people. Now understand, the Bible tells us in Mark 16:18 that if they drink any deadly thing, that it shall not hurt them. Okay? So we understand that there are some things that are necessary for us to know as we're going into this place. The word also says they shall take up serpents, right? And we're talking about a bite when you're dealing with a serpent, right? They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. So in this time, we need to keep some certain things in the forefront of our mind, because if there be by any chance that there's some kind of enforcing by force, then you don't have to worry about the thing. Because remember what I told you before, the Father gave a grace for the first thing. So what we're not going to do is go into this thing under the impression that we're going to do something to get something, if that makes sense to you. We're not going to take down on our laurels, on how we believe and on who we believe in to do something, to access something. I hope this makes sense to you, because it's going to become clearer and clearer as we're going along. What is going to be the dividing line? What decides what a son of Yah is, and what a son of darkness is its manner of doing things, right? Its way of thinking, how it does a thing, okay? So Mark 16, that's one for you to put in your mind. You need to actually memorize this verse, because even with Psalm 91, that's something you need to know in this season. But you need to make a note of Mark 16:18. Because you need to understand that there may be times that there may be an attempt on your life. When we look at Paul, Paul was one that an attempt was made on his life. He had already been through the storm. He had already been through this place and been shipwrecked and all of these things, got to an island. And as he's on that island, he's being a servant. That's another thing that separates sons from everything else, okay, is the fact that no matter what we go through and no matter what position we attain, we're still serving. You understand what I'm saying? We're still in the place of service for the kingdom. Okay. And he's on the island. Now, he's been shipwrecked. He's been through some things, but he's the one that's building this fire. You know, there are natives on that island and all kinds of things, but he's building a fire. And as he is building this fire, he reaches for some sticks. And as he reaches for the sticks, he's bit by a viper. He's bit by a viper, and they're waiting like this guy is surely going to die. He's bit by a viper, and what I liken that hokey pokey to, when you look at the actual stick of it, when you actually look at that, and we've got verses that we can go to, but we're not going to go to those this morning, about that thing. I talked about it at the beginning when we talked about the crown will rise. When we talked about that, I gave you guys all of the details about that, and I'm going to put that up on my YouTube page. All the details about what that thing looks like, what that prick looks like. It looks like a viper's teeth, how it pierces the skin and goes in. It looks like that because of the wideness of it. It has to be wide enough to transfer that the chip, or transfer the information, the mRNA, into the body. Anyway, let's keep going. So this is important for us to know that if we are forced to do something, if we are forced into a situation, that the Father has our back. Now, how it affects other people is not how it's going to affect us. It's going to not affect us that way. So therefore, people are going to be looking for us to respond a certain way or function a certain way. And while we're not functioning that way, we may have to act like we're functioning that way. Let's go back to Paul for a minute. He shakes the viper into the fire. Of course, he's not harmed. He doesn't die from the bite. So I'm telling you, if you're forced into something, I said forced, not that you just decided I need to do this in order to get this. You're not going to die from it. Understand this. But one of the things I wanted to get to you was that sometimes in this season, you might have to act like something other than what you are. Now, let's go to David for reference, because David was running from Saul. And as David was running from Saul, he was being chased after. And so they were identifying his location. And when he got into a space, he masked himself, or he pretended to be mad in that moment. The people were trying to get at him, but the man was like, why are you bringing this man before me? They were trying to say, this is David. He's like, this man is mad. Get him out of my presence, because David was foaming at the mouth and doing a bunch. What I'm telling you is you're going to have to go into different phases and different stages of this thing that we're going through. And you got to be ready to do whatever you need to do, whatever the Holy Spirit is leading you to do. You can't be like, oh, that's beneath me. Oh, that's too much. No, you got to be able to hear, and you got to be able to move, because if you're not able to hear and you're not able to move, you won't live through it. Okay. So if you're a son that was sent here to live and not die, then you understand that this age is about you living and not dying. And the reason that you're living is because you're living to declare the glory of Yah in the land of the living. You're living to declare his glory. So if we're not declaring glory, what's the purpose of living? So the reason why he would sustain you is simply to allow you to continue to heal the sick, to raise the dead. You understand what I'm saying? The kingdom still must be in operation. No matter what kind of operations darkness has on the floor, the kingdom of Yah must be enforced continuously, and it must continue to move forward. It must continue to advance. Okay? So I hope we're clear on that. And I want to share some things with you as we're going along this morning. Looks like I'm here by myself for a moment, but I wanted to get some things up. And what's funny is I had a really amazing encounter this morning, and the Father was showing me something and allowing other people to see some of the things that I've been saying. There's been some spaces that I've been trying to get to before this time, and my prayer is that those things still are able to get to their proper place before all of these things come down the pipeline. I want to be in my proper positioning across the board before that time comes. Um, so here we are. As we're in these end times, we've got to remember that our Father taught us to identify his movement, right? Because how does he move? He declares the end from the beginning. So if we're ever wondering, or if we're ever in thought about how he's moving, he's already declared it. And so this is one of the things we've been going through over the last couple of days, that we get back to the original conversation that the Father had with us. What is it that the Father originally had a conversation with us about? What are those things? What has he shown us, whether by dream or by open vision, just by a conversation from our heart to our mind? What has he relayed to us that we have not seen? We've got to go back to that space. And this was the reason why he was dealing with us in our hearts and in our minds and taking us back to spaces so that we can retrieve what our rightful things are. We've left spoil in those places. And the reason we left spoil is because we ran from the space because of the pain. We left spoil in those places and we did not retrieve what was promised to us. We did not get what was promised to us in those places. So this is why he has to take us back to those places. Even if he's taking you back to your childhood, there's something that you must retrieve there. But he tells the end, he declares the end from the beginning. So I thought about two things specifically this morning as I was awakened. I had a dream this morning, and then this unnatural storm occurred, and I really want to put this storm in the room. If I have time, if somebody else comes on, I'll pull it up for you. But this storm, this rain, and what woke me up, I was in a dream, and in the dream, something was after me. And that's because, you know why something's after me? Because we are putting off some things. We're re-identifying some places and spaces and dealing with these things. And not only am I dealing with it, but I'm teaching you how to deal with it. So this thing, of course, is after me. It wants to muzzle me. It wants to silence me. It was after me in my dream, and I can't remember all the specifics this morning, but it was just in several instances that this thing was after me. And I know it was diabolic because at one point I couldn't move my mouth. At one point I couldn't talk. And so anytime I'm in that space, I understand that this is not just information, this is an encounter. You understand what I'm saying? I remember in one part of the dream seeing this police officer ram into the car of another person, and the person got out of the car and began to run because they weren't in the wrong or anything, but they noticed it was almost as if the officer was attempting to exert his authority over another unlawfully. And so the person began to run, but I was kind of standing up in my seat a little bit. And the person I was driving with, we were trying to get the plate of the officer. And so I believe I was seeing and getting the plate of the officer. And this thing then was after me because I identified it. I identified it. You know, everything has an identification. And this is one of the things that happens in the fasted place. The Father begins to give us clear identification on things. I promise you, some things have become very clear to me over these last 5 days of this fast. Some things have become very clear to me. And lo and behold, if not in that third to fourth day, there we go. It's always in that space. But we're on day 5 now. And so after the dream, I awakened from the dream. And when I awakened from the dream, it was like when I tell you this storm was very unnatural. The rain itself was very unnatural. The sound of the rain, it was just a lot. It was a lot. And as I began to identify the sound of the rain and the winds that were blowing and the sound that it was making, I got up because I noticed that it was lightning. It wasn't just lightning. It was lightning nonstop. Okay. So I said, oh, okay, that's where we are. I'm recognizing, and I've told you guys already that these global shocks are real, that these people have put something in position or in place, and many people don't believe these things, but these things are able to happen because the Father has given man dominion over the earth. So man knows how to operate some things because the diabolic watchers communicate. Okay, they communicate with their people to know how they should move and how they can do what they need to do. Now I'm going to say something to you here, because what the Father wants to do with us during this season of these fast days is teach us how to operate our systems. We have an operating system. Mankind has an operating system that the Father has strategically given to him. And he's given him that operating system because it is a operating system that comes directly from him. Now, what darkness does, what sons of darkness do, is that they're allowing their operating system to be utilized by darkness. And this is what makes it wicked. However, what I do want to say is the fact that they are tapping into their operating systems to move as they're moving. They are dealing with weather constraints and controls to the degree that it is affecting areas and mankind. They're utilizing their funds and their access and their influence to put things up in the sky. Several times in the last 2 weeks have I heard these big eyes in the sky. You got to be aware that there are eyes on the ground. Yeah, in more than one way. There are eyes on the ground. So just like they put eyes in the sky, there's a bigger eye that is in the sky, and the Father is watching. His eyes are on all parts of this earth. There is nothing that's hidden from him. Now, that adversary that is attempting to see the earth in that way can't see the earth in that way because they don't have, the ability to put that much in the sky to try to capture that. But of course, they're attempting to do all that they can to see as much as they can. But understand, there's a phrase that the Father has given us in this season. The seed is sealed and the sons are safe. If you would put that in the room. The seed is sealed and the sons are safe. You got to understand that. The seed is sealed and the sons are safe. But twice in the course of 2 weeks, I have heard this conversation. My daughter, my youngest prophet, she began to talk to me about a dream she had a week ago about these big eyes in the sky. And then one of the prophets got on with me. We talked about this yesterday or day before yesterday, and she began to share about these eyes. And when she said when she said big, I knew she was going to say eyes. I said, just don't say it. Don't say it. These big eyes in the sky. Yes, darkness has put some things in place, and they are executing the things that they have put in place. And so this is why it's necessary for the sons to come together. It's necessary for the sons to begin to strategize and to begin to release what the Father is saying to us about this time. We need to begin to flood these lines, flood the internet, flood the web with all of the things that the Father has commanded us to do and say. And we need to do this thing post haste, because this thing is going to affect the system, the operating system of what they're putting in place. Some of the saving grace of the sons, as these things are taking greater shape and having more control and more capability. Understand, these frames that are being built are not necessarily being built for something artificial to live in. Okay, because there's no such thing as artificial intelligence. Mankind has figured out by way of the watchers that a frame can be built, a body, an edifice can be built for them to inhabit, to execute their good pleasure. You understand what I'm saying? Now, it's not a physical body, so they still need physical bodies. They still need physical bodies because there are some things on certain levels that they cannot execute without a physical body. But if they can make you believe that by their power inside of whatever other edifice or whatever other body or vessel that they can be contained in, to make you believe that they are in control, just because it looks physical, it doesn't mean it is, right? But if they can make you believe it's physical when it's not, and it's really artificial, then, they've done their job. And now they will bring you into a place of subjection. And, by you being subjected by those things, then you'll have to endure the things you'll have to endure. So as I was dealing with the dream and the unnatural storm, I had two thoughts, two things specifically that came to mind this morning. The first one was the preparation of the bride. As I was identifying this storm this morning and thinking about my dream, when I got up, I saw a bride. And I saw her, she was beautifully dressed, but she was running. You understand what I'm saying? Now you say, well, why is the bride running? She was getting to the place of the ceremony. And there was no carriage and there was no special car. She simply picked up her dress and began to run. She didn't want to keep her bridegroom waiting. So in the midst of all of these things that are going on, the Father is still saying, I am expecting my bride to be in position. I'm expecting my bride to be at the altar with me. And we'll talk about setting up altars and all of that. That's important in this season. You better know that the altar, you've got an altar of your heart, but you need to set up a space. You need to have a space in mind that you create an altar. That's your space that you go to intentionally, specifically. You understand what I'm saying? To communicate with the Father and to do what you do. Now, the altar is your heart as well. So you can carry, you have a mobile altar with you. But when you're in a local, in a location, you need to also have a space that you can, that's already set up or established, or something that you can carry with you. You know what? The Muslims do this. They take their altar with them. Yep, their altar is their rug. And wherever they are, they create that space right there where they are. So if you needed to look and see an example of what that looks like, there's your example. I'm not telling you to do what they do, how they do either, because the Father specifically said, when you get into the land that I'm taking you, there's something I need you to know. Don't worship me. Don't serve me like they serve their God. That means you're not taking in what they do to repeat it. You're taking in the process. I'm giving you a process here. I'm not okaying you to do anything that pertains to that religion. Okay? So get that out of your mind, because that is not what the Father designed. He designed the kingdom and he designed relationship. And everything, I mean everything, I don't care what faction it comes from. And there are many factions beyond the denominational identification that we have in the church industrial complex. There are many factions. That would be one of them. Okay? Church of the Latter-day Saints, that's another one of them. It's a ton of listings that will give you all of the factions. You can identify those things. Those are the factions, and he's not calling us to serve him in that way. Okay? All right, so this bride picked up her dress. She was getting to this place because she didn't want to keep the bridegroom waiting. So while she's running, though, it began to rain, and it began to thunder, and it began to lightning, and it began to lighten the sky. Lightning began to flash. And I was thinking about this as I was looking at this lightning this morning. I can't call it a lightning storm because we don't have lightning storms like that. And this thing lasted for over an hour. I'm talking about continual lightning of the sky. You guys do know that that's not natural, right? It's definitely not natural for here, because I've never seen anything like that in 53 years of living. I've never seen anything like that. But it began to rain, and it began to thunder, and lightning began to flash in the sky, and the sky became dark, but she continued to run. Now, most would read the spot or wrinkle in the scripture, because we know that the Father is looking for a bride. He's looking for a people. This is a bride. This is one unit, right, without spot or wrinkle. And most would read that spot or wrinkle as an outward attire. You can liken it to that because you understand what spots and wrinkles look like. So understanding it from that perspective is good. But she arrived in front of the place she was given to meet her bridegroom, and she was soaking wet. Okay? And her hair was disheveled from the winds. And her dress wasn't torn, but it was wet. And you know, when your dress gets wet, whatever color it is, it's darker because of the water. But the beads were glistening. All right? They were glistening in the light at that point because it began to lighten up the sky. All right? She looked up at the building and began to climb the stairs to go to meet the one that she loves. That means through all of these different processes, she's still striving to get to the one that she loves. She's not losing her focus. This is why the Father gave me this vision. She's not losing her focus. She doesn't need any special caravan. She doesn't need any special carriage. She's not waiting on anything because she has to go a certain way. She picked up her dress and she began to run. That means she's prepared for this. She took the time to select the dress, to select all of the accessories that she would wear on that day. And with all of that in place, she wasn't like, oh, I don't want to tear my dress. I don't want to mess myself up. She ran. You hear me? She looked up at the building and she walked up the stairs to go meet the one that she loves. And as she came into that place, she never once thought of all she had been through to arrive there. She was confident, soaking wet, hair disheveled, and still confident that she could go in and stand in front of him in this moment. You know why? Because she had gone through all of the purification necessary for this moment. She didn't miss any of her time in the season of her purification. All of the proper spices and herbs and essential oils that would be used to purify her were used, and she went through that process. But guess what was unspotted and unwrinkled? Her heart was unspotted. It was unsoiled. And her heart, which also doubles as the mind, was only on her groom. It was only on her groom. It wasn't on what she went through. It wasn't on the fact that her clothes were disheveled and wet and her hair was disheveled. The second thing was this limitation of the imitation. The limitation of the imitation. I gave you two things, but now I'm on. No, this is the second thing. The limitation of the imitation. Put that in the room. The limitation of the imitation. Everything that is an imitation has limitations because it can never please the Father. So we can never go to the imitation because it has limitations. And so let me give you some clarity on what I'm talking about. Because when we're dealing with this bride, it wasn't just her outward appearance or her outward show that this groom would be pleased with in her. It was what was internal. It was, this was something deeper than what was on the outside. It was in the knowing that she endured to be there that was impressive to him. That you came through the rain, you came through the storm, you processed through all of that, and you yet arrived at the space. The 5 virgins, right? Foolish and the 5 wise, right? They took the time to have what they needed when they got to that space. The 5 foolish virgins didn't have what they needed, but this bride prepared. And even after all she'd been through, she went and she stood in that space. But I want to deal with this limitation of the imitation. So I recall 2 scriptures as we begin to discuss this portion. I identified with 2 scriptures this morning. Father brought these to my remembrance as he was talking to me about that. Remember, I told you when he's talking, then the images are forming in your mind. There are conversations that are happening in your mind. This is why it's important for you to read the word during this season. We're still on this 90 days through the Bible. Get through it. Do not let this year end and you have not gone through it. Stop playing. Stop wasting time. Stop being diverted. Stop being distracted and stay focused because you've got to get through here. There's got to be something for the Father to work with. There's got to be something for the Spirit of Yah to work with. There's got to be something in you that when the test comes, you know what to say to it. You know how to answer it. You understand what I'm saying? So these 2 verses came up. I believe we should go to Exodus 13:16 first. Exodus 13:16. Let's go there first. Let's get there. Exodus 13:16. There we go. All right. Now we're dealing with the limitation of the imitation right now. Keep that in your mind that that's what we're dealing with. Let me pull this window out because I want to be able to see you guys still. There we go. I want to be able to still see you. The limitation of the imitation is still what we're dealing with. Okay? Exodus 13:16. That's right. Thank you, Elder. Exodus 13:16. Let's look at this. It says, and it shall be a token. It shall be for a token. Let me move this window over. All right. Give me a second, guys. I've got something stuck here. There we go. All right. We got to get these things in proper order so we can move about here. This is what it says. And it shall be a token. I'm going to read verse 15 first. Let's go up to 14. And it shall be when thy son asketh thee in time to come, why is this? Hi, baby. Good morning. That's my daughter in the room, Prophet Rain. That thou shalt say unto him, by strength of hand, Yah brought us out from Egypt, from the house of bondage. And it came to pass when Pharaoh would hardly let us go, that Yah slew all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I sacrifice to Yah all that openeth the matrix, being males, but all the firstborn of my children I redeem. And it shall be for a token upon thine hand. Ooh, it's something in there. Okay. Got it. And it shall be for a token upon thine hand, and for the frontlets between thine eyes, for by the strength of the hand of Yah brought for by strength of hand Yah brought us forth out of Egypt. Okay, so remember that by strength of hand. Remember the token upon the hand. I love you more, baby. The token upon the hand, remember that, and the frontlets between the eyes, because we're going to deal with this limitation of imitation and how the imitation is limited in its ability. It cannot please the Father. It cannot please him. Why am I not seeing my comments? Okay, they are going up. I'm just not seeing them. All right. Okay, I got it. I see what's happening. Good. All right, are you guys with me? Let me know you're with me. Put a 1 in the room. Trying to position this screen where I can see everything that I need to see. Welcome to those that are still coming on. Okay, so that's the first thing. We got, it shall be a sign for you on your hand and a reminder on your forehead that the law of Yah is to be on your lips. Because we know that with a mighty hand, he brought them out of Egypt. Okay, so this is going to serve as a sign on the hand and a symbol on your forehead that the Father is going to be a reminder that the Father brought you out of Egypt. All right. So now here we go. Here's another verse for you. Deuteronomy chapter 6. Go there real quick. Deuteronomy chapter 6. I'm going to show you these two things and then I'm going to show you something else. I pray, I don't know if we're going to get to the mark today, but we're starting. This is the beginning of it. So we're getting to it. This is the beginning of it. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 6, I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, now these are the commandments, the statutes. Are you with me? Okay, there we go. Hey, Prophetess Mika, good to have you in the room. These are the commandments. Write it down. Commandments, put it in the room. The statutes, put it in the room. And the judgments. Did you hear that? These are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments. Let's look at that real quick. Commandments, mitzvah. Let's look at this. We're going to look at these words real quick. Mitzvah, commandments. Okay? That is dealing with something that is a law or ordinance. Remember, we were talking about laws yesterday, right? The legalities and the necessity of those boundaries. So these are the boundaries. These commandments are boundaries. The commandments are something that is divinely put in play. So these are precepts. Blessings, woman of God. All right? You guys got that? These are orders, divine orders or codes of law. That's an easy way for you to remember it. These are Yah's codes of law. Put that in the room. Commandment means codes of law. Codes of law. Got that? Okay, so commandments. Let's look at statutes real quick. Here we go. Let's look at statutes. Pulling it up for you right now. Coke is the word statutes. Okay? And this deals with limitations. Remember, we're talking about limitations, right? This deals with limitations. So the statute is dealing with the limitation. It's something that is prescribed. It's a prescribed task. So when you're talking about statutes, it's something that is a prescribed task. It's something that must be enacted. Right? It's a condition that must be met. It is also an appointment. As an enactment, hence it is an appointment of time or space. Okay? It's a custom as well. This is what we do by custom because it's a statute. So I've got my law, I've got the codes of law or the codes of conduct, and these are the actions that go with the codes of conduct. Okay? These are the customs that go with the codes. All right? So put in there, statutes are the customs that go with the codes. You got that? Statutes are the customs that go with the codes. All right? All right, let's go to the judgments. This is mishpat. Mishpat is what it is, and this is what that means. This is the result, the judgments. This is the deciding of a case. So based on these codes of law or codes of conduct, the actions being the statutes that we carry out because of the codes of conduct or the law or the boundaries, right? These are the judgments or what happens as a result of us following the code of conduct or breaking it. Okay? These are the deciding measures in that case, or the litigation, if you will. Okay? This is the sentence or the decision or the time of judgment. And understand that judgment doesn't just happen in that great day. Judgment is constantly happening. This is why the word declares that we should judge ourselves so that we're not having to be judged. You understand? And this place of fasting is a place of judging ourselves. This is a place of, as Paul said, putting our body under subjection. I used this term many years ago, and I still use it, but I don't use it as much. But there was an affliction of the soul. This is how you afflict your soul. You afflict your mind, your will, and your emotions. You bring it under because it can be in spaces that it doesn't belong. But when you bring it into that place and you stop it from functioning on the level it was formerly functioning on, then you bring a halt to things that were processes or cycles that were diabolically inserted. Remember, we were talking about the hard drive yesterday and how the hard drive can become corrupted because something burrows its way into the system, onto that system's hard drive. And now it has to either be rooted out. If it cannot be rooted out, it has to be wiped. And we talked about this yesterday, how when the master came, he came to wipe and to reboot, to wipe and to factory reset. That's why he came, was so that man could be wiped and factory reset back to the original intention that the Father had in mind. This is why it's so important that we come into our authentic identity in this hour. This is not a conversation. You have to put yourself in this space of fasting and prayer and reading the word. You have to do this. This is the only way you're going to get to where you're going. It's not going to happen by any other means. Now, somebody would say, well, I don't think that's fair. Some places that the Father promised me and some things that I'm seeing and some things that I believe he's saying, but he's saying, listen, there is a way. Somebody put in the room, there is a way. Did y'all put up the judgment? The judgments are the execution or the decisions that are made because of the acts based on the boundaries. But listen, the Father's saying there is a way. And he's even given us the way throughout the scripture and throughout the Bible. He's given us that way. He told Joshua, don't let the book of this law depart from your mouth. In other words, keep it in your mouth. You need to understand the law, is what he's saying to him. You need to understand how I move. Now, what did the master come to do? He came to take us out from under the law and put us over the law. Now, how do you get above the law? It's a position thing, right? There are people in this world that are above the law, right? How? By position, by right of their position. They are positioned over the law. That doesn't mean that they won't still be judged for their actions, but based on the right of their position, they're over the law. Now, what did the Father come to do? He sent the master to put us over the law so we wouldn't be under the law. Now, what does that mean, over the law? It means now that I have a key so that I can execute this law. And I don't have to worry about all the 600 plus laws that exist, because all I have to do now is utilize this master key. This unlocks everything. This makes sure that I've done everything that is written therein. He said, love the Father with all your heart, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. In this you have fulfilled all of the law and the prophets. So you're not missing anything. Okay? All right, now let's go back to this thing here. All right, so in revealing these two things to me, so here's what would separate those. This is what he said. Here's what would separate those in a time to come. Here's what's going to separate those that are not his from the ecclesia or ecclesia, whichever way you desire to say that. I say it both ways because I just say it that way because it's potato for me. You know what I'm saying? Ecclesia or ecclesia, whichever way you say that, this is the called out ones. I want to go to that really quickly because I want to define this for you, because this is absolutely important. This is what marks us. Who we are is what marks us. Let me go here real quick because I want you to see this, because I want you to see that every time I tell you that church and ecclesia or ecclesia are not the same thing, they are not. This is what the enemy has done. He's taken things that the Father has said and he's twisted them, and they have another nature. And even though we see another nature, we still want to attribute something because somebody translated it that way. They had an agenda in their translation because they wanted people to now come together. This king was trying to stop death from in his kingdom. King James wanted to stop the death. He wanted to save his empire. If y'all keep killing each other like this, we're not going to have nothing left. I ain't going to have nothing to rule over. So how about this? Let's just all get along. Y'all can come out of your houses. People ain't got to kill you no more. You can go into these pagan temples and you can worship. And we can all just get along. Y'all get out of space. Let them in there so they can worship. We just going to all get along. And we're going to put these holidays in place, right? Okay. And we all going to do the same things so that there's some commonality here so that people are not so different, so starkly different that people are wanting to kill them. Because understand, when you're different, it makes other people's sin stand out. When you're separated, it makes sin seen. This is an issue that all of the sons have had throughout history, including when we get to the prophets, including when we get to Noah, including when we get to all of these people, when we get to the master, and we get to the apostles. When they showed up in a space, it revealed sin. And when it revealed sin, it revealed people. And when it revealed people, people got pissed off. You understand what I'm saying? So sometimes people are not connecting well because sin is being revealed. And instead of them digging deeper into the situation and saying, I'm going to plant my feet, I'm going to stay put, something's being revealed to me and I need to focus, they run from it because flesh wants to rule. Flesh don't never want to be put under. Flesh wants to do what you trained it to do. And so if you trained it to function a certain way and it's been functioning that way all this time, that's what it wants to do. So the master came to put us over the law, in that now we were not under the curse of the law, because the curse of the law is defined by all of the things that had to be done in order to get to that place of atonement. Now, love is the key, the master key that unlocks us fulfilling the law, because that's what the master came to do. He said, I didn't come to get rid of the law. So people that think, oh, we don't follow that. No, we don't. No, you're wrong. He gave us the master key to unlock the fulfillment of it. But there are things that are still there that we have to abide by. And those appointments are there. The Father didn't change his appointments. They're still his appointments. But guess what people did? They built all kinds of things around his appointments. Just like Jeroboam, that wicked king, one of the most wicked kings. He was one of two of the most wicked kings that ever ruled Israel. Now, there were many wicked kings, but these others were just following in the footsteps of Jeroboam up until the point where Ahab came into place. When Ahab came into place, not only did he operate in the way of his father Jeroboam, when I say father, not meaning his physical genetic father, but father as in the way he followed his way. So this is a part of the mark as well. So just listen to this. But he took it a step further. He married into darkness. He married into this wickedness. He solidified it by birthing something from it. Listen. He birthed physical body through this thing. Are you listening to me? Okay. So listen, this word church, let's look at it real quick because these are keys. These are important. Let me go here. We talked about this yesterday. This particular verse, Matthew 16:18. This is crucial. You need to remember this verse and you need to start getting this in your spirit, what the master was talking about, because we talked about this Mount Hermon, right? What happened at Mount Hermon? And I told you those three things again already, but we're going back through it because this is what happened. He said unto Peter, when Peter identified who he was, he said, this is who you are. He said, okay, my Father revealed that to you. That didn't come from you. Flesh and blood wouldn't have known that. He said, there are some things that flesh cannot identify with. Write that down. Flesh can't identify with the unseen realm without the spirit connecting it. So there is spirit that connects it, but now what spirit is in operation is going to detail what you're connecting with. So he said to Peter, he said, listen, flesh and blood have not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. So he had divine intel in this moment. that the master recognized, okay, you got that. And then he said, I say unto thee that thou art Peter. Now he went from Simon Bar Jonah. Look at what he does here. He goes from Simon, son of Jonah, Simon, son of the lineage of Jonah, the one that runs, right? He says, that thou art Peter. Now he changes his name to Petros. Okay? And upon this rock, I will build my church. Now, I've heard all kinds of things throughout my life growing up about this passage. And many people think that he built the rock upon Peter because he named him a small stone and all of that. No, but he's building upon a foundation that is sure. And that sure foundation is that he is the Christ. He is the appointed one, the Son of the living God. He's the appointed one, the Son of Yah, who is the living God, the Almighty God. Okay? He said, I'm building upon that fact. He said, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Now look at this. Let's look at this word church, because if I go back into that, I'll be there for a while. This word church is ecclesia. Okay? Ecclesia. And it is a gathering of citizens. Now, what are citizens? They're not members. Hello? Citizens are not members. Citizens belong to something. Citizens belong to a nation. Citizens belong to the kingdom. Okay? So there is a citizen. These are citizens that are assembling. They are coming out from their home. They're coming out from their homes into a public space. What is the mandate of the Father? He said, I need you to go into all the world and preach this message of the King to all nations, to every creature, right? So these citizens are called out from their homes into a public space, into an assembly. Now, why are they coming to a public space, place of assembly? Now, this is where we get that idea for the church thing, right? For counsel. They're coming to that space, just like we're coming right now, for the purpose of going through counsel for deliberation. What are they deliberating over? What needs to be done? What needs to be executed? Okay? Now, of course, if you look up this word and you look it up in Strong's, it's going to have a whole lot other things there. But if you understand that the Father doesn't make any mistakes, we can keep digging. We can keep digging, and we can look at another word that's a compound of that. So the word ek deals with out from, by, or away from. Okay? And this is a point that an action or motion proceeds. All right? So look at this. This is a repositioning of people for the purpose of governance. It's a separation from something with which there has been close connection. Okay? So out from, forth, a place. Okay? Now look at this. You're leaving an interior place to go to an exterior place. Okay? You're leaving from an enclosure to an outward space. Now that don't look like, I don't know. We're going to keep going. We'll go back. Let's go here to another derivative of that, which is this kaleo. Kaleo means to call. That means they've been called out of something. This is one that is called out by name. In other words, a name has been put on them. This has nothing to do with memberships in clubs. This has something to do with a specific positioning in the kingdom. Remember, we were talking about the bride. You know what happens with the bride at the altar? She takes on the name of her bridegroom. She takes on the name of her husband. So this is the space where a name is given to receive a name, or to receive as a name. Okay? To bear the title of someone. Well, how would somebody identify your title if you're inside of a space? Well, they do have titles for that inside of space. They call them Christians. But that was never something that the Father called his people, neither the Master, neither any of the disciples. It's only 2 times that word was mentioned in Scripture. And that was by people that were not inside the faith. One was a king, and the other were the people of a space that were not followers of the way. Okay? So, not the same thing. It's not the same thing. Let's go here. Trying to get through here. We got like 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh. Hold on. All right, let's go through here. So, we're looking at these things, and he says that what's going to separate the ecclesia or the ecclesia from everybody else is how we're going to move through these times. How we're going to move through these times. Because something's been built on a foundation. And the Father has declared through his Son that the gates of hell, the gates, remember we've been talking about the gates, that which keeps things out and which keeps things in, these gates, which means the government of hell. How hell is governing things is not going to prevail against the sons. It's not going to prevail. All right? Now let's go back to this showing forth. This I gave you guys that conversation about the limitation of the imitation. So here, those verses that I gave you from the beginning, Exodus 16, I believe, or 13, 16, and Deuteronomy 6 discussed the forehead and the hand. Remember, I told you to keep that in mind. The forehead and the hand, put it in the room. He said, these things shall be for a sign for you on your forehead and on your hand, right? So now we go to how these people begin to identify what this looks like to them. Remember, I talked to you about divine imagination. You can have something other than divine imagination and create something completely different than what the Father had in mind. If you look at, I wish I could bring this up. Let's go to this verse real quick. Let's go to this verse real quick. I'm going to pull it up so you can at least get an idea of where I'm going with this, even if I don't get to pull up the image of it, which I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to do that before we get off of here. Come on. Give me one moment, guys. See if I can pull it up. Where is it? I want to get to that too. Okay. I want to get to that. And I need to because I need to discuss. Okay, here we go. I'm going to have to pull it up again. I was just looking at it, actually, and I don't understand why I'm needing to pull it up again. Okay, I want you to put the word phylactery in the room. I'm going to tell you what that is. Let me see. I might have to just share the image from here. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. And I really want to share this video too. Phylactery. You guys got that? Put that in the room. It's Phylactery. Phylactery. I'll put it in the room for you. Phylactery. Okay? You guys got that? Forehead and hand. That's it. Phylactery. You guys see that word? Let me know that you can see that because it's hard. Okay, yeah, you can see it. Phylactery. Okay, this is a thing. Now, what a phylactery is, it's a small leather box that contains Hebrew texts. Okay? It contains Hebrew texts, and it's worn by Jewish men at morning prayer as a reminder to keep the law. Now, I'm not going to go into the Jewish thing this morning. I'm not going to go into that because many of you that have followed me, you know how I feel about the ish. ISH. Go look it up and understand what it means, okay? When we're talking about the people of Yah, we're dealing with Hebrews. We're not dealing with anything else. We're dealing with Hebrews. And there's no Hebrew-ish. We're dealing with the Hebrews or the children of Israel. Anything outside of that is something else. Just know that. Okay, so let's deal with this. What were these people that were beholden to the law in the New Testament that did not understand the fulfillment of the law and the way that the master was bringing? They had put on these different positions. They had imitations of what the scripture was talking about. This shall be a sign on your hand and on your forehead. Now they've gone to a place, and let me see if I can share the image with you here. They've gone to a place now where they're going to put on, this thing. Let me see. Can I open this up? Yeah, let me open this up and see if I can share this page. I'm going to show you this. Please show the picture. And please finish loading so I can get through this. Okay. I'm trying to get to the image for you guys. I pray it's on here. My God. Where is it? Okay. All right. I'm going to have to do this another way. I want to show you this before I get off of here. Okay. I'm going to have to share it like this. Let me share my page really quickly. I'm going to share this really quickly, and then we got to get off of here in this moment, but we'll come back tomorrow. Not going to do overflow because I have something I must do today. Okay. Can you guys see that? You see this thing on the head? These are what you call Teflon. Teflon is the word for phylactery. Phylactery is the English word. Okay. They're called Teflon in Hebrew, and they are worn on the head and on that, that transitions to the hand. You see this down here? It's wrapped around the hand, but it's on the arm, tied to the arm and the head. Okay, so now when we look at the mark of the beast, where is this targeted? To the hand and the forehead, right? The mark that is targeted for the head and the forehead. Okay, I'll pull it up for you real quick. And then we got to get off of here. All right. Let's go to, let me see, which one do I want to pull up? Let's go to, we know Exodus was our understanding of it from a scriptural place, and we know what that means, that we've got to keep the word active in our lives in order for our minds to be in the right place and for our hands to be doing the right thing. I'm trying to figure this out real quick. I want to go to Revelation 14. Okay, yeah, we'll go there real quick. You guys see it? And we'll get into the number of the name and all of that. But we want to go to Revelation 14. It's so many different ways we can go with this, but we'll go to Revelation 14. Let's go there really quickly. I'm going to take you through Blue Letter Bible. I'm going to take you there this way. Revelation 14. I'll go to 22 minutes. Y'all keep me aware of the time. I want to get this to you. Okay, here we go. You see this? Okay. Here we go. Revelation 14:19. Can you see this? We're right here. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in their forehead or in his hand. You see this? The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Yah, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Okay? So what is the attack on mankind? It's for the mind and the actions. Okay? We'll come back to this tomorrow, but I want you to see that this is for the mind and the action. So look at what the master does. He spoils darkness. He exposes darkness, right? He spoils it. He exposes it. He resets the man back to his original place. He does a factory reset, a reboot, wipes the slate clean, wipes the hard drive clean so that more information can now be put on there, so that the right information can now be put on there. Something that's uncorrupted and uncorruptible can be put on there. Okay? But the adversary's goal is to go after that mind so that he can deal with the actions. So when I'm talking about this thing where we're dealing with what a person is doing and how a person is moving, I said I would go to 122, so I'm going to spend this time. I'm going to go all the way there to 122. So now we see this, okay? The Bible tells us not be soon shaken. Don't be soon shaken by what you see, because this time has to come, right? And we'll come back to that. But I want you to see this, that the Father is always making a difference. He's always dividing. Remember, I told you that from the beginning, he declares the end. And so the master, even when the master showed up, he began dividing. He declared that as a part of his coming, he came to do his father's will, and that's to divide and separate. So why was there a flood? To separate. Why Elijah called a famine? To give y'all's chosen an opportunity to be free from that mark of that age. He called a famine to separate. We can look in the history of mankind and see that there was a separation. And when you look at Jezebel and Ahab's kingdom, you'll see that there were murdered prophets, but that there were murdered prophets, but then there were castrated prophets. So there's still a separation here. But even though there were castrated prophets, there was an ally that protected and separated and hid the other prophets. So even in this time, there was a mark. During this time, we're going to go through these things. I want you to see these different marks. There was a mark in each of these ages. When you look at when the three Hebrew boys, the four, because there were three Hebrew boys plus, Daniel. When you look at their captivity, because see, there's this conversation about us leaving this rock. Listen, there's captivity that comes in every generation, in every world. There's this hour or hours of captivity of a people. But then there are those that are the remnant that come through there. So you see Daniel, you see these three Hebrew boys. There's a mark in that age. What's the mark? You're going to have to bow to this statue. The first mark that was going to be made was that you was going to eat the king's meat, eat the king's meal. And Daniel and his boys said, no, we can't eat like that. We don't eat like that. That's not what we do. That's not how we move. So much so that he said, listen, let me say this to you. Let the king know that this is how we need to move. If we have your permission, sir, we're going to need to, he's talking to the guy that's over them. We're going to need to do this way. And then you can prove us, prove us so you can approve us. Because when we do it our way, when we do it the way the king gave it to us to do, then you'll see that we are well off. You'll see that we're better than what you're doing with the other people. Right? We see it in their day. But that was the first mark, was the meal of the king. The second mark that they refused was to bow to this image. It's the same thing in this hour. We are not to bow to the image of the beast. When you look at the master, what was the adversary after in that time of after that time of fasting? He was after him bowing. But he had the word. He had an answer. And he had brought his flesh under subjection. So now he could answer this issue. Now he could answer this enemy. We look at this. What was Jezebel castrating the prophets for? What was she killing the prophets for? Because it was an attempt to prevent the word of Yah and to release another word. What is the age that we're living in right now? All of this hokey pokey and hocus pocus. What is all of this about? I'm dealing with from the hokey pokey to the to the pharmacia or pharmakia. Okay? What is the adversary after? He's after altering the word of Yah. He wants to prevent the word of Yah from taking shape. He wants to prevent it and release another word. And so what do words create? We keep talking about this. Words create pictures. They create images. They create imagination. And it creates faith, which creates a substance. So the mark of the beast is not just one thing. It's not just this thing or the chip in the hand. It's not just those things. Because if you get tied down and they give you that, then that would say that that would mean by that right of identifying or defining the term that you've been marked, and you could not be marked. Because if that's not your focus and that's not where you are, if you were forced to take something, if you were pinned down and they jabbed you with it, understand Matthew 16:18, right? Psalm 91, right? We saw Paul shake it off into the fire, right? What can affect everybody else affects them because of what they're operating in. Their operation is to access something without the Father. They're saying, if somebody holds this over me and says, you cannot have what has been authorized for you to have as mankind in the earth unless you bow to me, and they bow, then they have change their allegiance. You change your allegiance. And so after changing your allegiance over and over and over again, guess what? You can't come back from that. We see that happening with Pharaoh. He hardens his heart several times, but then the Father hardens it for him. Are you listening to what I'm saying? So the enemy's desire is to prevent the word of Yah. Because if he can prevent the word, he can prevent what you're supposed to be creating. You know, you're a co-creator, right? Made in the image and likeness of Yah. You're of the God kind. That means you're a co-creator. So what the enemy wants to do is to stop you from creating. Thank you, Elder. To stop you from creating. I love you guys. Listen, we're about to get out of here. We will come back again tomorrow at 5 a.m. I'm praying and believing that you got something out of this. If you would just put in the chat, let me know that you got something. Let me know that you got something this morning. We're going to close it out at 1:22. Exactly. At 1:22. Let me know that you got something this morning, because we're going in a direction. I'm trying to get you situated for the things that are coming. That unnatural storm, I'm standing in the doorway capturing this thing. I'm going to load it up tomorrow or tonight, so I'll have it ready and in the room and waiting for you tomorrow. But there are some things, and you're going to be introduced to some more things in your environments and in your areas. If you haven't already been introduced to them, you will be. And you better be sure when you identify with these things where you stand and who you are. Because I'm going to tell you this. There are times when we need to call a halt to things. I said, Father, the people aren't ready. And I told the winds to stop and I told the rain to stop. And it did. It did. I told the wind to stop and the rain and the lightning and the thunder to stop. I said, Father, they're not ready. Give me a moment. Give me a moment more. Give me a little bit more time to get it done. Give me a little bit more time to sound an alarm, even in this area and even online. Give me a little bit more time. I love you guys. Peace to your house. We will see you tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Love you so much. Peace. The body's not a me thing. I didn't forget. It's a we thing. Peace.